Hello again, Real Hi-Fi Help. Yeah, third video. I got interrupted before, so I'll just continue a bit. I was going on about this particular box, isolate mini sub axis. I mean, that's one of the key ingredients. So when if you own any piece of equipment, not necessarily audio note, but just any equipment, this box makes magic happen. It makes every single component of the system work in a natural way, so it fully integrates, and you get most of that cool hi-fi sound, but in a very convincing, natural way. So typically when you have boxes that are better, I would say when you have boxes that are a lot more expensive, you have boxes that typically are more powerful, have a bigger sound stage, they have more punch. But trust me, most of these boxes aren't better than this particular box, because you get all of that extra stuff with the sound, usually by suppressing the individual characteristics that you have in your system. So let's say that you have a really good power cord connected to this this box, and then you have a very different power cord or type of streamer or whatever on your chain. Typically you would only get the structural part of the sound becoming maybe 1.5 or 2 times better. And trust me, it's a trap, because I've been there. I've had those expensive boxes. Those are typically boxes like Gigawatts and AudioQuest and other boxes like that. They cost a lot more, and they do individual things that are a lot better than this box. But I think that personally, that the overall impression that you get is a boosted, filtered, certain angle of the sound that isn't in the long run going to make most people happy. That's just my opinion. Of course, if you have your opinion, you can of course write down in the comments what do you think. But I've had Gigawatts, AudioQuest and other boxes, at least 10-20 other boxes, and they always do this, that they put a certain type of filter on the sound so that all of your cables that you use sound the same, even though they are all very different. And that I did not like, because I don't want this this B&W effect where you get this, helping hand that keeps on, pushing the music forward, saying boom, 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 boom. I'd rather have a more subtle, honest, and sincere, and really, connected to the true feelings of the music, that kind of sound, making everything going forward, fully integrating everything in the sound system. So no matter if you have audio notes or a streamer here, a tube, dual, rear, it makes pretty much most of the equipment that's on the market speak the same language and be able to communicate together. So that's the particular ability that Isolate have. Can it be done a lot better? Yes, it is possible. There are also more expensive Isolate solutions. I still do not recommend those. I feel that this is the one particular box that will help most people with their systems. They have to stop buying different branded cables. They have to stop experimenting with different DACs, CD players, amplifiers. Get this box, okay? It will help you quickly determine what exactly is going on with your system. What are all these cables doing? Are they good for your system? Are they bad? It helped me a lot having this box, and combining it, especially in the end with this speaker here, I now know fully everything that's going on in the system, and I can tell the smallest nuances of what's right and wrong in my system because of these two things. So if you don't have them in your system, I would definitely recommend these two things. Now, because my system in particular here is set up in a very good, above normal type of way, everything that I have on my system is extremely responsive. And because of that, I can hear small things, not because of my good hearing, but I can hear small things like if I would change a fuse on my streamer or my DAC, or if I would change the pot meter on my audio note amplifier, or if I would make some kind of small change like changing the plugs on my speaker cable that's connected to the amplifier. All of those small things are possible because I created a special connection between this isolate box, and look what I've done. Took 1/2 meter of audio node ISIS copper cable. Yes, that's their official cable that they have, and I made a 50 centimeter cable. 50 centimeter is a very magical length, and it's only magical when you take it from the wall socket directly to the box. Okay, that will create a sort of transformer coupled connection. Okay, making the box respond a lot better. And look, I teared up the cable. This is not recommended for normal use, but I did this alone, so you don't have to do it. Then I opened up the cable, and then I took a double minus pull, or denote ISIS minus pull on this cable, and I only had a single pull on the plus and the earth connection. That creates the ultimate balance, meaning that the music fully relaxes, gives it a lot more warmth, a lot more depth, so you don't have something constantly pumping sound out, being very agitated and not letting fully go. That is one of the key connections to making all of your own power cables, which could be standard $1 cables or whatever you find appropriate for your system. It will make those cables react a lot better. And so that's a really good tip. What I did here, I can't really officially recommend people doing, because notice the fact that I basically butchered the original cable and made them free out of the jacket there. That means that they're naturally vibrating, and you can't really call it a official solution that you can do. I mean, insurance wise, probably not going to be covered by a fire if a thing like that happens. But that's what I did in order to create a instantaneous, a lot more powerful sound, a lot more reactive, a lot more natural sound, by doing this in this particular way. And I of course used OIAD 037 plugs on everything. That's, by the way, the most harmonious, natural sounding, fully integrated plug that also exists on the market, in my opinion. Some people would like other plugs, some people don't want to focus at all on these expensive plugs. I respect that. Just saying, generally I have found with all tube equipment, OIE 037 plugs on everything, whatever you go with of cable, crap cable, the cable that you like, have the same thing on every link. My God, will you hear a big difference. So OIE 037, it is specifically designed for a warmer, more developed sound. So you need some pretty decent equipment in order to get away with using plugs like that, because they're very revealing, but they're still very naturally warm. But they will only get naturally warm if you have a very good piece of equipment. I'm talking about DAC streamer, amplifier, whatever, but it creates a lot of harmony. And also notice the fact that, speaking of AudioQuest, on my speaker cable I have AudioQuest's silver speaker terminals. Those are some of the best speaker terminals that you can get for the money. Getting this type of sound usually costs 4 or 5 times more, getting these particular silver plugs, banana plugs. So do that. And another tip for making your audio note speaker sound particularly good is have a 3 to 4 meter long speaker cable. Very important. And I recommend having a thick, good quality single wire connection. That will ensure that you're able to, like I showed you before, use the lower frequency filter, have the you see the pin that comes with the audio note speaker connector, whatever. Use that. That's high quality silver that matches the speaker terminals, that matches the silver inside. That's the best, basically the best connection in the world of all speaker cables. These terminals are basically some of the top 3 terminals in the world. AudioNote Auto, Maisho, and Ongaku is clearly the best one, but costs a lot more. These terminals are basically the best of the best, third best, this one in particular. AudioNote Auto terminals are ridiculously good and don't cost a lot. And this silver here matches it exactly. And the silver cable on the other side, the SPE silver cable, which I think is about 19 threads, that is the best quality silver cable in the world, according to my opinion. And one of the main reasons that people never would think of, that actually makes the speaker one of the best speakers in the world. You look at a lot of good speakers, expensive speakers. I won't mention brands, but there are a lot of really good expensive speakers, and the problem with most of them is that they don't invest enough money in really good speaker terminals, really good speaker cables, and generally there's too much technology going inside of these cabinets. Okay, so we have, comparing it to this speaker that I have here, you usually have a circuitry inside that's 2, 3, or 4 times longer, with parts that are maybe a third, or if you're lucky, half as high quality parts as this speaker. There are, of course, speakers in this world that really cost as much as a house, that has certain parts of the speaker that are a tiny bit better than some of the AudioNote speakers. we're talking about a handful of speakers here in the world. But the problem is that even though these few speakers that usually cost $100, $200, $500,000, the problem with them is that, like I said before, there's just too much going on, too many units, too big a filter, too many different parts in the filter. The filters usually are cut up in a certain way, so you have everything doing the certain type of thing. The really special thing, one of the most special things about this speaker is that the high quality parts and the short circuitry combined together with what I said before, this particular cable inside. You can really, most companies don't know this, but you can really destroy a speaker by just not having the right type of cable inside. And there aren't many good cables out there. You know, most cables out there, if you put them in a speaker, I have actually been to a friend's place where he took this Audio Note silver speaker and he tried to upgrade it to something that had 5 threads, 5 times the amount of threads that still was silver cable. He connected it, he burned it in for a month or two. It sounded horrible, absolutely horrible. Was there more bass? Yeah, there was more bass. There's also supposed to be more bass when you're going from 19 threads to around 100 threads. But the problem is that most silver cables that are made are man-made, and they are usually extracted from a huge amount of other metals in a very unnatural way. This particular silver that Audio Note uses, it's one of their secrets for why they are so good. They basically have the resources of putting the best speaker cables in all of their units, inside of their DACs, their amplifiers, all of the stuff that they make, their speakers. It's the same type of thread that they use for everything. And most people don't notice this. They just think that, oh, Audio Note, handmade, ooh, yeah, expensive, British, must be good, and yeah, not always as good as you want it to be, and blah, blah, blah. People have to understand that what they're doing is beyond the standard engineering book. There are a lot of good companies out there that make a lot of interesting high quality products, but the problem is that this particular X factor of treating this whole thing as a craft, as an artistry thing, simply does not exist anymore. It basically only Kondo and Audio Note that are doing this, that are actually listening to their equipment, that are not putting filters, standard filters that most engineers believe in. They have, like I said before, a circuitry that is a lot shorter, meaning that you have a lot more of a connection to the sound. It means that the the immediateness is there. There's no lag, there's no filter, there's no negotiation, there's no computer behind all of this, making things speak together, compensating, going through this filter. What's going on in the hi-fi world is that most companies believe in this philosophy that you should filter everything out because everything consists of noise, and you should then upsample the signal. And if you can just have all of this technology, modern technology, with these reasonably good parts, then it will save the sound. And that's the thing that AudioNote goes completely against. They've recognized that we don't need to use these standard measurements, because these standard measurements where you get these ridiculously low amounts of distortion, and when you lock the hertz or whatever, or when you convert it from a coax signal to a USB signal and back to an HDMI and then something else, these are things that only work good on paper. And what you'll experience is that you'll always have some kind of an angle when perceiving the sound, coupled with these very controlled handcuff effect, where you've basically got everything, all the information in the whole sound picture that you're listening to. But the problem is that the flow, there's no musical flow, there's no release of energy. It's all kept in a leash. So you keep on turning up and up with your expensive amplifier that you've bought and connected to these speakers, and you think, my God, why aren't they singing? Why don't they sound nearly as good when I heard it on this other system? And that's because AudioNote are just so different in the way that they think. It's basically unfiltered, untouched sound with the shortest signal path, with the highest quality parts. And we're talking about quality parts that they make themselves that are so high. We're talking about parts that are usually 2, 3, 4, 5 times better than the best in the world. And sometimes this is one of the few bad things about AudioNote. Sometimes you can have a piece of product that is such a high quality that it will actually sound worse than a speaker, a normal speaker. Sometimes it can create that effect. I've experienced that several times with AudioNote gear. And I have to say, I have the same problem with this thing over here. Look at this. You see what that is? That is the Oyade M1F1 plug. Okay? That's one of the most ridiculously detailed plugs that exist on the market. It's really reactive, just like top AudioNote equipment. These plugs are so difficult to control. You can basically only use maximum 10 cables. Maximum 10 cables, I would say, in this world are qualified for being used with those plugs, because they are so revealing. They are so reactive. All the sound just goes instantly through. And you easily, when you connect a normal cable to it, you immediately hear all the bad things that this cable has to offer. Okay? And I had to use, what did I have to use? I had to use some very special, expensive silver cable. Wasn't enough. I listened to it for a week or two, sounded good, but I could hear that it was pretty screechy, pretty analytical. I had to put some AudioNote speaker cable in it before it sounded good at all. And that's just amazing. I mean, I must have tried at least 50 cables that were pretty expensive, and also some pretty cheap cables. And all the cheap cables, they were either very moldy in sound, or they were just really, really bad quality. You could hear how grainy they were and underdeveloped. And I mean, my God, you right now I have an AudioNote ISIS copper cable, one of the best copper cables in the world. And I wouldn't use anything less than that. I mean, that's the absolute minimum that I would use on those plugs. When you buy these OI8 plugs and you buy them with OI8 Tsunami power cables, I'm just sometimes, going to my head, triple face palm, just going, how the hell can they sell this, I mean, it's OI8 Tsunami power cable is an okay cable, okay? It's a bit heavy and mechanical and boring and all that, but it doesn't come anywhere near to controlling those plugs. Those plugs that OI8 have made are basically the best plugs in the world, and it's just to give you an idea that when you have something sometimes that is so good, it is on such a high level that it can't communicate with normal equipment. And even, expensive equipment. I tried Nordost Odin 1 and 2 on these M1, F1 OI8 plugs, weren't good enough at all. It sounded cool. It did a lot of things that were really, really, really impressive, enormously impressive. I was really blown away. But I found myself still thinking, I just can't listen to this for more than 20, 30 minutes. And then I instantaneously just, lose interest because it just sounds unsettled. So what I discovered, ultimately I had to use AudioNote's silver cable on it, and then finally in the end I was fully satisfied. But oh my god, that is the most expensive, basically the most expensive cable in the world. That was the only cable where I could put it on those plugs and I was fully satisfied from every aspect. But I'm just saying, it's just to give you an idea of the weird shit that's going on in the hi-fi world. And that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Now, when I have this speaker in my system, I have now reached a point where it's such a high quality of sound that I can actually create the sound of 3 or 4 distinctly different speakers. Just like I said before, Martin Design Bird 1, I can create that type of sound now. I can create one of the top B&W sounds. I can create something like a Peak Consult sound, and I can't remember what I said before, but those are really good speakers, very different speakers. So the only thing that I just do is just stick with all the gear that I have. The DAC, the streamer, the isolate box, still the same amplifier. The only difference that I do now is changing the one power cord from the isolate box to my amplifier, just by having a different power cable at a different length with a different set of plugs, switching between those OI8 F1 M1 plugs and the OI8 037 plugs, maybe using the same cable, I've done that before, creates 2 completely different sounds. But that's only because I've reached a level here where everything is instantaneous. I can feel the changes immediately. The problems that I had earlier with all of the different pieces of sound equipment that I had, it was all different types of brands at all different levels. They really gave me a lot of problems, and I can really understand that a lot of people, especially on YouTube, totally disagree with cables and plugs working. And that's one of the reasons, because cables and plugs only work to the degree that your system fully reacts, okay? And most systems are heavily suppressed, so they're not reacting. They have some kind of a a weird power box here locking the sound, making all the cables sound different. That locks the amplifier, which locks the DAC, which locks the streamer. It basically puts handcuffs on your system, and it might sound good from a certain standpoint. I mean, you have basically all the detail there, the nice grippy bass and all that, but it's not emotionally involved and fully lets go of itself and loses that makeup. There's always that hi-fi edgy sound, driving on a certain train track towards you, and you just can't, change the tracks, you can't release the individuality that exists in that. And that's what I've basically done with my system here. And this is not to brag, okay? This is to help the hi-fi community, help them understand what's going on, because I've had a lot of these systems that people listen to in the store. Top Macintosh system, top Pass Labs and Levinson and stuff like that. And trust me, they're, from certain angles, they're really, really impressive, okay? I like a lot of the aspects from Macintosh Audio and all of the other stuff. But overall, this type of sound, it will make most people in this world a lot more happy, because the qualities that this speaker gives you is a feeling of true joy.